Welcome to Weather Extra. I'm First Alert Meteorologist Jillian Johnson. If you've been outside at all recently, you know the main weather story for us in Central Texas has been the above normal warmth. Although cooler weather is on the horizon, so far the first half of November has been all about the above average heat. But that's also been the story for most of 2024. In fact, going back to the start of the year, 7 out of the past 10 months in Central Texas have featured warmer than normal high temperatures. Those months are February, March, May, June, August, September, and October. The only months where the average high was cooler than normal were January, April, and July. Now in Central Texas, our normal average annual high temperature from January through October should be 81.4 degrees. But so far this year, our average annual high is 83 degrees. That means so far 2024 is on track to be warmer than average, but we still have a little less than a month and a half to see if we actually end the year in the year that way. Now, unfortunately, new data is suggesting that this year will be the hottest year on record for our planet. From January to October, the average global temperature has been so high that 2024 is sure to be the world's hottest year unless the temperature anomaly throughout the rest of the year plunged to near zero. According to Europe's Copernicus Climate Change Service, it is virtually certain that global temperatures will be more than 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels this year, which has never happened before. Well, back here at home, we've not only been dealing with above normal temperatures, but also a lack of rainfall over the past few years. To bring us a look at how things have been in the rain department, we turn to First Alert meteorologist Sean Bellafury, who has more on this for us. Sean.
2024 has been a year of extremes, not only in the temperature department, but in the rainfall department as well. And even though 2024 will likely be the first year in the last 4 years to finish with a rainfall surplus, the extremes have definitely been showing up. October, the 14th driest in history, 3.69-inch rainfall deficit. And hey, thankfully for the first half of November, we will finish with a rainfall surplus, but it's not a big one by any stretch of the imagination. And September and October were so dry that through November 15th, fall has been very dry. We're running a 5.27-inch rainfall deficit. Like I mentioned, the good news is that because of how rainy May was, we are going to be finishing the year out with at least a little bit of a rainfall surplus. But unfortunately, I got to tell you, it has been a really dry year if you think about it. In fact, only 3 out of the first 10 complete months of this year have finished with an above normal amount of precipitation. Since May 2024, which was the rainiest month in history, not even just rainiest May, we have not recorded 2 inches of rain or more since then in an entire calendar month. So the extremes have definitely been showing up. And as we take a look a little bit back in time, the extremes are really starting to compound themselves. This is the same thing I just showed you, but in graph form. The orange, or the brown line, I should say, is the average amount of rain we should see, and the green line is the actual amount of rain that we have seen. With that big rainfall surplus going into the start of summer, we were sitting pretty, but things have gotten a lot worse since then with the lack of rain that has been showing up. But if we go all the way back to 2021, every other year before this has finished with a rainfall deficit. A little deficit in 2021, a big one in 2022, another big one in 2023. And if you add up the last 3 and almost 4 years together, the picture gets a little bit bleak. Since about October 2021, we have not had an average amount of rain as we keep adding on top and on top and on top. And in fact, from January 1st, 2021 till now, we are at 117.79 inches of rain. We should be at 141.46, and that is a 24.26-inch rainfall deficit. That's the average amount of rain we see in a calendar year from January 1st to September 7th. Reporting in the studio, Sean Bellafury, KWTX News 10.
Here's a look at the latest drought monitor for us in Central Texas. This update came out this past Thursday, November 14th. Thanks to recent rain at the beginning of the month, we've seen improvement in the drought monitor from what it looked like back towards the end of October. But the majority of Central Texas is still placed in level 2 moderate drought, with level 3 severe drought still covering some of our southern counties. And worsening drought conditions continue to grow across the entire nation. As of the latest update, nearly 83% of the nation is under some form of drought. There was some improvement in the drought for the central U.S. thanks to some rain and even some snow last week, but for the eastern U.S., drought conditions have worsened for the second week in a row. There are currently 49 U.S. states experiencing moderate drought or worse this past week. More than 149 million people in the United States are currently being affected by drought, with over 318 million acres of crops experiencing drought conditions this week. Unfortunately, these conditions have led to an increase in wildfires from coast to coast. And speaking of wildfires, crews have been battling numerous fires across the Northeast over the past few weeks. The Jennings Creek fire is now the largest fire to have burned in years across New York and New Jersey, charring thousands of acres, forcing many to evacuate. CNN's Gloria Pazmino has more.
From a New York City park to forests across the Hudson River in New Jersey, unprecedented fires are burning across the Northeast, fueled by strong winds and months without significant rain.
Never seen it like this before.
The Jennings Creek wildfire in New Jersey has scorched thousands of acres and is still going. Across New York and New Jersey, 600 wildfires have burned since October.
In my over 50 years of living here, this has been the most significant and probably most potentially dangerous situation I've seen or been involved in.
Daryl Vasquez, an 18-year-old Parks and Recreation employee, was killed Sunday while he was responding to a fire.
This is a very dangerous profession. This is a very dangerous incident that we have here.
Strong winds across the region have carried the heavy smoke across New Jersey and New York, leading to air quality and red flag warnings for millions of people. The water supply is also under strain.
October was one of the driest months we've had in recorded history.
A man was charged with arson after he fired an illegal shotgun believed to have sparked a fire in Jackson Township, New Jersey, prompting evacuations in surrounding communities.
My daughter and I, we packed up our important papers and all of our prescriptions and got the dog ready, and when they said go, we were ready to go.
It's been the same story out along the West Coast. Worsening drought conditions and strong winds were the perfect storm for devastating wildfires in the state of California. CBS's Jonathan Vigilati was outside Los Angeles where the mountain fire destroyed dozens of homes. Take a look.
This is the aftermath of lives forever changed.
Everything's in there.
Rebecca Vallejo had just pulled up to her mother-in-law's home of more than 30 years.
It's gone. Everything. All the family memories.
It took teams of firefighters more than a day to get the full toll of destruction. More than 200 homes and structures damaged or destroyed, each one carrying a tale of human heartbreak.
I lost my everything, every single piece of my documents, everything. My money, everything.
The home I was in, I rented for 5 years, and it's completely wiped out.
Every memento that you ever had, kids' schoolwork and things like that. We're retired, and this is our paradise. And now it's gone.
Hampering firefighting efforts, the worst possible conditions. No recent rainfall, extremely low humidity, wind gusts up to 85 miles per hour that kept planes on the ground, unable to drop much needed retardant as flames raged unchecked for hours, scorching over 32 square miles.
This firestorm was so powerful, it tore through homes divided by canyons. Neighborhood after neighborhood decimated in just over 24 hours. It will take years to rebuild, and there's no guarantee another fire won't strike again. Jonathan Vigliotti, CBS News, Ventura County, California.
And here's a staggering new report. The total cost of damage from climate-related extreme weather events globally over the last decade was about $2 trillion. That's according to an estimate by the International Chamber of Commerce, and it's roughly in line with the economic toll of the 2008 global financial crisis. The report assessed nearly 4,000 weather events across 6 countries from 2014 to 2023. It combines both the direct monetary toll from the destruction of homes, businesses, and infrastructure, and the impact of extreme weather on human productivity. In the report, the group said it aims to push governments and businesses to accelerate policies that would reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Well, the countdown to winter is on, and you may be wondering what the season could look like for us in Central Texas this year. Well, coming up next on Weather Extra, First Alert meteorologist C.D. Finley and Sean Bellafury sit down together to break down the winter outlook and talk more about what could be impacting our weather as we head into the winter months.
With the official start of winter just being a few weeks away, many people are wondering how our winter will actually look here in Central Texas. And so our friends over at the National Weather Service in Fort Worth have actually released a winter outlook for this upcoming season. And I'm here with First Alert meteorologist Sean Bellafury to kind of help break it down a little bit. So before we get into the forecast, let's talk a little bit more about what a climate outlook actually is. It doesn't really attempt to predict the weather. It's really difficult to really go out that far long range and get as high resolution data as we usually do, say with our closer range models and stuff like that. And it really just provides a likelihood that temperatures and total precipitation will be, say, above or near or below average for that particular period of time. As you can see here, the winter outlook for 2024-2025, we're looking at the temperature outlook there. We're looking at the temperatures being above average for this time of year. So Sean, what are your takeaways from our 2024-2025 temperature outlook?
Yeah, we've kind of been experiencing it in Central Texas across the entire state actually already so far as we kind of transition from summer into eventually winter. We really haven't gotten fall just yet. We've had a couple of tastes here and there, and I think that's kind of what we're going to be expecting this winter. The big headline, when we talk about a good chance of an above normal amount of or above normal temperatures and a good chance of below normal amounts of precipitation, that is a classic La Nina setup. And El Nino, La Nina has such a big impact on the climate across the United States that's really where we look whenever we give these outlooks. Because remember, just like you mentioned, we're taking a look into the future well past what forecast model data is considered reliable for. So we kind of have to use our past experiences to determine what could be happening, in the not so distant future. I mean, we're talking February. It's already, 3 months away at this point.
Even just based on past experiences, I mean, even thinking about October, right? We set the 14th driest October on record, I believe. That's correct.
14th driest, the hottest as far as the average high temperature, and second highest for the average temperature, the high and the low average together.
With that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the precip as well. It's kind of more of a continuing trend there as well, so to speak. More below average temperature, precip in terms of rainfall amounts here as we head into the winter season, which means we're likely going to continue that trend just based on previous experiences and, like you said, with La Nina as well. But I also want to note here, and it has this note here on the slides as you take a look here, does not necessarily mean that there won't be any winter weather events. I mean, even kind of going back to previous La Nina years, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, I believe 2021 was a La Nina year.
Yeah, triple dip La Nina. It was the winter of 2020 to 21, 21 to 22, and 22 to 23.
Yes, and it was in that period of time, and I believe it was 2021 as well, that we saw the big rain or snowfall amounts with what many people call Snowmageddon.
Snowmageddon, yeah, the COVID snowpocalypse is what we've heard, but the February 2021 was unlike anything Texas has seen. On a local scale, parts of North Texas has seen those type of temperatures before. Central Texas has, but it's kind of on the extreme level. And then, just thinking back to it, back in 2021, freezing temperatures got all the way down past Galveston, and we even saw snowfall as far down south as the coast. So even though it was a La Nina year, that does not mean warmer temperatures below normal precipitation. Something could definitely happen. Yeah, and we want to say that we're not forecasting another February 2021.
Yeah, that's not true either. We're looking.
If that is going to happen, that's something that would be like 7 to 10 days out that we would be able to forecast. But this is an overall outlook. So just because we may not see a snowmageddon, a couple inches of snowfall, a couple of inches of ice, doesn't mean that we can't get, maybe one day of freezing drizzle, or maybe one day of a little bit of sleet, or even a bit of snow. It's just typically those La Nina winters tend to trend a little bit drier, not only on the rainfall, but also the wintry precipitation too.
Obviously, we're turning into a La Nina season, right? As you kind of already hit on a moment ago, we had an El Nino summer. Now that we're kind of switching into that neutral phase and going into La Nina. And as you can see here on the slides, we usually see above average temperatures and below average precipitation. And that's why, we're predicting that we're likely going to see exactly that, above average temperatures and below average precipitation. That's just what we've seen historically speaking. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And of course, we'll keep you updated on how this winter will actually turn out in the coming weeks. And Sean, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Welcome back to Weather Extra. In last week's episode of Degrees of Science, Chief Meteorologist Brady Taylor spoke with Dr. Cohan, who is a leading Texas energy researcher. In their conversation last week, they talked about the rapid development of wind and solar energy production across the state. They continued their conversation this week, and in our latest episode of Degrees of Science, they discussed the Texas power grid and where it sits now and how wind and solar power impacts the grid. Here's a listen into their conversation.
Is the Texas power grid any better set up now compared to 2021 to withstand something like that?
Yeah, huge improvements have been made. I don't think we would have the level of blackouts that we did then. I think have far less than half if I had to try to put a number on it. But I do not think that the ERCOT grid is ready for a repeat of Uri. Demand has grown, so that's going to pose a challenge. And we were just so far short back then. We were more than 1/3 short of supply meeting demand. And so I think we've made improvements that natural gas plants will perform better. I think the one nuclear unit that went down, I think it can avoid those problems. But the wind and solar that we keep adding to the state and the batteries that we're adding will help certain times of the day, but when you get to those winter storms after the cold front has passed and the winds are slow and it's dark, those aren't going to be what gets us through.
So one thing that we deal with a lot here in Texas in the summer is when we get to where the warnings that come out from ERCOT about getting to peak usage is with the transition to more solar and wind. Will that decrease that concern when it comes to those really hot days?
It has. It's really been transformative, is that we had near record levels of demand summer afternoons this year, and yet on almost all of those summer afternoons, there was plenty of supply to go around. Prices didn't spike nearly as much as they had in previous years. And the difference maker, even though gas is still the largest part of the power supply, the solar that's been brought online just the past few years was a difference maker in needing conservation alerts or a few days perhaps having needed rolling blackouts to really having more than enough power to go around. And that's because solar farms in Texas have been doubling every 2 years for the past 10 years now. And so we had a lot of summer afternoons where a quarter or a third of our power was being met by clean sources, even at the hottest times. On the flip side, there are new challenges where we start seeing the difficulties are when we have the occasional winter storm or just after sunset when it's still hot in the fall. There are bits of times when wind and solar can't carry us through. Those don't have the absolute highest peak demand, but when the wind and solar aren't available for us, those are the new times that are a bit challenging for the grid.
To hear Brady and Dr. Cohan's full conversation about the increase in wind and solar power production and how it impacts the Texas power grid, scan the QR code on your screen to watch on YouTube or go to KWTX.com/degrees of science. Weather Extra will be right back. Welcome back to Weather Extra. Each year, more than 3 million Americans are displaced by natural disasters. For many, the trauma does not end when the wildfire or storm is gone or when communities and homes are rebuilt. CBS's Dave Malkoff shows us how technology is helping preserve memories so they can weather any natural disaster.
This bookcase is filled with wonderful memories.
Matt Asner lives in the foothills that catch fire in the city that gave its name to the 6.7 Northridge earthquake.
5 of his Emmys were destroyed.
In the 94 earthquake.
In the 94 earthquake.
You may know his father.
This is what I remember when I remember my dad.
When CBS legend Ed Asner died 3 years ago, it was up to his son to save family history from the kind of disaster that's become more common as our Earth heats up.
This is from a CBS dinner. Carol O'Connor, John Ritter, Mary Tyler Moore was his big break. Ted Knight, Gavin McLeod, and my dad. This is my dad, and Larry Fine from the Three Stooges.
But how do you protect this many paper photos?
It digitizes about 1,000 pictures in under 5 minutes.
This is Mitch Goldstone. He owns one of many companies that will do the scanning for you.
Over the years, there's been such an urgency, a race to have everything scanned before the next natural disaster, the wildfires, hurricanes.
And it's not just family memories. Even governments are looking to save history. These boxes are full of photos that have just been gathering dust.
We realized at that point in time that this wasn't storage. This was history.
Jackie Doak found them at the newspaper building where she works on the Cayman Islands.
Before Beryl came through, they sent all these boxes here.
Right, and they really had great timing because then the hurricane hit and they had everything digitized.
The Cayman Islands project was massive. We're talking 347,000 images. These are photos and negatives inside these boxes, all had to be scanned. This is just one of those photos. For one family, it was an astounding find.
And she came up and put a message that said, "Oh my gosh, that is my mother when she was a child, and we don't have any photos because we lost them in Ivan."
You always see those the news stories where people are crying about what they've lost. They're not talking about their couch.
They're actually talking about the person who used to sit there, a memory now preserved. Dave Malkoff, CBS News in Northridge, California.
Get ready for some cooler temperatures to arrive later this week as some in Central Texas may get close to seeing their first freeze of the season. So if you have any sensitive vegetation, you may want to get it covered by the middle of the week before that colder air settles in, just in case. Well, that's all we have for you on this week's episode of Weather Extra. We'll see you right back here next weekend.